Am I the butthole for leaving my 9-year-old half-brother home alone? Hi. So, I, 19 female, live with my dad, stepmom, and my half-brother, 9 male. For weeks it was planned that this past Friday night my dad and stepmom were going to her parents' 40th wedding anniversary at some fancy-ass restaurant. Me and my brother weren't invited cause we're not adults. Since I didn't get an invitation and didn't want to be stuck at home with just my brother, I decided to make plans myself, and me and my BF were to go on a date. My dad and stepmom wanted me to babysit my brother, but like they've never paid me for babysitting him ever and he's pretty hyperactive, so no thanks. After complaining for a bit they hired a babysitter for him. So Friday comes around and I'm doing my hair and makeup and all that, getting ready for the date. My dad and stepmom had already left for the dinner. While I was getting ready I get a call from my stepmom in the car on the way to the restaurant saying that the babysitter canceled and that I'd have to stay home and watch him. I told her I was sorry but I had plans I didn't want to cancel. She said it was too late to call anyone and I had to stay. I said I can't and that I'd be at home for another 40-ish minutes, which would be enough time for them to come back home, and they have to be back then to watch him. She just hung up. Well, I finished getting ready and even waited another 15 minutes and they weren't back yet. I texted them I was leaving and left my brother home alone. We live in a nice neighborhood and I'm pretty sure I stayed home alone when I was 10, so I was sure it'd be fine, especially since they didn't bother to come back home. Anyways, long story short, when I came back home they were already home and my stepmom was pissed that I left my brother home alone. She called me irresponsible and said I didn't care about family, etc. She also told me I'd have to pay for this vase my brother broke. I feel this is unreasonable since I gave them a warning I was leaving and they had the opportunity to come back, but I don't know. Am I the butthole? Oh, and just to add, in case people are wondering if I paid rent or whatever, my grandmother gifted the house to my mom and dad as a wedding gift. When my mom left my dad she gave him the house under the condition I could live there up until I finished grad school if I wanted to. Edit, should have added that I only get free housing. Not because they choose to, but because of a contract my dad signed that he's forced to comply with. Everything else I pay for myself. And I make my own food and clean up my messes. I should have said so in the post instead of commenting it. Oh yeah, and in case it wasn't clear in the post, I have babysat him plenty of times before. Not the butthole. You told him you wouldn't watch him. When the babysitter canceled, ultimately it's their responsibility to come home, not you. They are the parents. Going to go against the grain, you didn't technically leave the 9-year-old at home. They did. They took a bad bet and it failed. They should have come home instead of trying to strong-arm you into it. You gave them several warnings and waited and waited and waited. Oh, and they never hired that babysitter. You were lied to. Not the butthole, but you do suck a little bit, but you were in between a rock and a hard place, you just didn't make the best call. I would say everybody sucks here. He's a 9-year-old child and he shouldn't be left alone. But anyone else think that there was no babysitter to begin with and the stepmom planned this to try and get them to stay at home and babysit? Am I the butthole for causing my mother-in-law to take away some of my sister-in-law books? We're visiting my in-laws and my sister-in-law was telling me about all of the books she's recently read and bought, as we both like reading. I've read some of these books and I wasn't sure if she should be reading them as she's 16 and some of them are pretty explicit and don't exactly have the healthiest romances. I told my husband about the books and he told his parents. My mother-in-law ended up asking me to point out which ones I knew were too mature for her and she confiscated them. My sister-in-law is mad at me as she isn't going to get the books back as my mother-in-law is planning to donate them and she's no longer allowed to buy whatever books she wants. Am I the butthole? You're the butthole, but in a rather sad way. You could have used your fear of her developing an unhealthy image of romance as an opportunity to talk to her about that exact issue. If you wanted her to be safe, you should have used your relationship with her in order to educate her on why these books might portray an unhealthy image and advise her to read with caution. You won't be able to control what she consumes ever, not with the internet and social media present, but you threw away the opportunity to be her guide. Now you've taken away not only her books, but managed to teach her that she can't trust you instead. Edit, thank you kind people for all the awards. Oh Lord. You're the butthole. She is 16 and reads. Y'all should jump with joy for that fact alone. And let me reiterate, she is 16. She most likely has access to the internet, and excuse me for being blunt, if she wants to read, or write, smut fiction or watch porn, she most certainly has her ways to do exactly that. Not to mention she already did read the books in question. While rereading books is a thing, most people don't do it that often. You know, you could have talked with her about the stuff she read, and find out what she thinks about it at all. Have a healthy discussion. Might have turned out that she has very reasonable thoughts, you know? In school, she might be reading Pride and Prejudice, or To Kill a Mockingbird. Speaking of not having the healthiest romances, Amirite. And despite all of this, she still enjoys reading. Let the kid read, and give the books back. Or replace them. You need to apologize, WTF is wrong with y'all? I am disgusted and angry. You're the butthole. Overstep much? I was reading freaking VC Andrews at 13 and I turned out okay, depending on who you ask. Am I the butthole for telling my husband he doesn't deserve to be a father? I made a new Reddit account because my husband knows my main one. My 36 female husband, Dennis, 39 male, and I have been together for 9 years, married for 4. When we met we were both looking to settle down and have kids, so it felt like fate that we met. We started talking seriously about having kids around 1.5 years in, and started trying at 2 years. After 3 years of trying and heartache, we decided to adopt. Following a long and hard journey, we were finally able to welcome home our beautiful daughter, Sophie. My husband was a wonderful father to Sophie. He loved holding her and being with her. He would rush to her side when he heard her cries. I couldn't have wished for a better partner and father for my children. Just after everything settled down with Sophie, we got pregnant. Both Dennis and I were elated to hear we would be having another child, and ecstatic when we found we were having another little baby girl, so close in age to her sister. But I started getting worried when I heard some of Dennis' comments as I started to show more and we got closer to birth. He once even said, "I can't believe we're finally having our own baby." I questioned what he meant by this as we have Sophie already, but he brushed it off saying I knew what he meant but didn't say it again to me. When I gave birth, Sophie was 11 months old and had been saying MMM whenever she stroked my belly, so we decided to call our daughter Amy. When we brought Amy home is when Dennis' behavior really started to slip and lack towards Sophie. He stopped giving her attention, documenting or even caring about her milestones. He started actively trying to avoid interactions with Sophie, e.g. if I asked him to tend to Sophie if she were making a fuss, he would go to the cot and say that he can't as he is tending to Amy. Sophie is clearly being impacted by the sudden loss of her father, so once the kids were in bed tonight I asked him what is going on with him. He told me that since Amy was born, his love for Sophie has died. He then retracted, and reworded, saying dimmed instead. I was horrified. I told him I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He tried to calm me down by saying that perhaps we could split them. He'll take Amy and I take Sophie. It almost felt like he was making a really crafty joke. I called him a terrible person and told him he didn't deserve to be a father. I told him that I feel betrayed and repulsed by him for using one child as a trial for the next. He left the house and hasn't come home since. It's snowy here and it's getting on for 2 a.m. and I'm getting worried. Edit. Thank you everyone for your words of support and advice. I am yet to speak properly with Dennis as I am still seething. I have asked him to stay with his brother until the weekend, when I will have the opportunity to go and stay, with the girls, at my parents' house. Until then, my friend and sister are taking turns in helping me out at home. Fortunately or unfortunately, it is likely that divorce is on the cards. I don't see this as something that either Dennis and I or the girls would be able to live with or recover from. Not the butthole. I don't throw around the "you should divorce this guy" line flippantly, but man, in this case, you should divorce this guy. Don't force Sophie to grow up thinking this is what a father's love looks like. Don't do that to her, OP. Oh wow, he is not a good father. He is going to scar Sophie for life with that behavior. You're 100% not the butthole. What sort of deranged being discards an adopted child like that? It's a whole process, and just because someone has his DNA, he simply devalues the little girl you both awaited for? That's absolutely unreal. He is 0% a family man. Not the butthole. I hate to say this, but unless you want to severely traumatize Sophie, divorce might be a topic worth considering. Sophie is going to be severely negatively impacted growing up and seeing the difference in how your husband treats her and Amy. If she is exposed to this every day, I do worry for her long-term mental health. It's not healthy for her to be brought up in an environment where a parent sees her that way. I lived with a family for a time who struggled with infertility. They adopted 2 girls and 3 years later had their rainbow baby. Their love for their adopted children never died or diminished. This is not normal, and people should not adopt if they are incapable of loving an adopted child the same way they would a biological child. Your husband is disgusting. His attitude and comments around the matter are disgusting, and you were right to call him out on it. Not the butthole. Wow, I can't even begin to imagine the shock you must be going through. To discover that your partner is the kind of person who can just stop loving an innocent human being. I would think very seriously about whether your relationship can continue, especially for the protection of your oldest daughter. If you want to try and salvage this, please insist on very heavy therapy, because this is already he road of neglect and abuse. Also, him just leaving and letting you worry with 2 babies at home is very immature. Do you have family or friends that can take you in? I would not stay there waiting. Get out and protect your children from this sad excuse for a parent. Am I the butthole for not wanting to be disinvited from a trip I planned? I, 27 female, planned a ski trip with my boyfriend, 29 male, and some of our friends, mostly his friends. We booked in advance. Told them about it, let them know they could come, or not. We planned on bringing our computers to have a LAN party while we were there. My boyfriend and I game together, once a few people wanted to go. We were really excited. Recently I learned as we arrived at someone's house to watch a game together as a group, that I am not invited on the trip any longer, because one of his friend's girlfriends couldn't come due to work, and now it's going to be a guy's trip. I feel pretty hurt. I got upset and asked them what right they had to disinvite me from a trip that I planned, and to basically make it no women allowed for some odd reason. We plan things all the time and I attend. We share the same interests a lot of the time, so I am confused and bothered by the implication that I'd be distracting / in the way / make it less fun. They brushed it off. So they are going now, without me or anyone else with a vagina, I guess. My boyfriend feels torn. He is kind of a people pleaser and doesn't want to make waves. His friends say weird crap sometimes about women, and say they are joking, but this makes me feel like they actually meant those things, and don't even think of me as a friend. Straw/back situation, as some other things have happened that were similar, but I brushed it off as my misunderstanding, at the time. Instead of also being their friend, I'm just their friend's girlfriend, which really hurts because I've really been there for a lot of these guys and gone out of my way for them. One of them projectile vomited in a bathroom at a friend's house everywhere, and got embarrassed and didn't know how to clean it while drunk, so I cleaned it up for them. I have hosted at my house and always tried to make it fun. I don't understand. I told them it was fricked up and I planned the trip, so they don't get to decide that. They basically acted like I was being emotional and just needed to get over it. I have refused to talk to some of them since then. Everyone is acting like I don't want them to go and do things, just the guys, and I am being controlling. The narrative has been lost among our friends and I am being painted as a villain compared to other women who were going, who are cool with it. When actually, I don't give a crap. They go out all the time for guys' nights and guys' trips. I just want to enjoy the trip I planned, regardless of being a girl, or not. I don't think telling them I'm coming anyway would even do anything. I can't imagine going now, with how they clearly feel. That would be really awkward probably. But it has created a rift between my dude and his friends, and they are telling him I'm being unreasonable and overreacting, and he is talking about not going and is really pissed at them but doesn't want to ruin the friend group dynamic. I know I can just plan something else, but this sucks. Am I the butthole? Not the butthole if it is booked by you, unbook it. Holy frickballs, girl, TMFA and find a quality guy. I hope you haven't paid anything into this trip, and if you did, can you get it back? Did you make all hotel arrangements? Etc.? Cancel them. Maybe tell them that they are now uninvited from your trip. Ha! Nothing to understand here. It's them. Not you. They sound like they are 12, selfish, buttholes. Stop making excuses for your BF. He's a people pleaser? I'd think he'd want to please his GF the most. And these other guys? Oh yes, they mean those comments. Trust me. And they do know how to clean up their own puke. Dump these MFs already. Not the butthole. 1. You planned a ski trip with your boyfriend and invited his friends as a courtesy. 2. These butthole friends decided to make it a boys' trip. 3. You and BF should show up and go skiing, screw the rest of the boys. Am I the butthole for telling my friend to man up or not to come to my wedding? Context: me, 31 male, and Taylor, 30 male, have been best friends since forever. We were school buddies, college friends, my parents love him, we've vacationed together many times. Taylor is a very affectionate person, kind, thoughtful guy. 3 years ago me and Ann, 31 female, started dating, and now I'm pretty sure she's the love of my life. Brilliant woman all around. We're getting married next January. The conflict: after a long and thoughtful conversation, my fiancée voiced her concerns about inviting Taylor to our wedding. Basically, she had 2 main reasons for asking him that. 1. Dress code: Taylor is a 30-year-old punk. He wore a dress to our prom. You know, that kind of guy. 2. Taylor is dating a guy. Which is not the problem. But his partner is also very flamboyant. And wants a very minimalist, quiet, calm wedding, because she struggles with anxiety and ADHD. So, that was her request. I talked to Taylor the next day, and I told him about Anne's concerns. Tay said, "Do you think I'm gonna show up in a white dress?" And laugh about it, but I told him he needed to promise he would respect the dress code. Black tuxedo for the guys. That was the code. I got a little caught in the moment, so maybe I was harsher than I should have been. I told him to man up and to act his age. I said some stupid stuff like, "People laugh about you, you want to be a joke?" He said sure, no problem, and the next day he declined the online invitation. He keeps telling me we're good and everything is okay, but the situation, it's bothering me. I love Tay, but I know he can be difficult. My group chat with my family is burning because they don't understand why he will not be there, and our friends group chat is dead since the news dropped. Am I the butthole? You're the butthole. This could have been a really easy "hey, it's important to my fiancé that everyone respects the dress code." Telling him to man up, act his age, people laugh about you is beyond rude and mean. It's cruel. If I was Taylor, I wouldn't attend your wedding either. You need to apologize and take responsibility for being a prick if you have any chance of maintaining this friendship. Though I don't know why Taylor would want to. You're the butthole, and let's be real here. You chose to say man up because he wears dresses and you think that makes him less of a man. Of course you're the butthole. The only thing Taylor is doing is staying friends with you because it is incredibly disrespectful to his partner. You want him to act his age, but accepting yourself for who you are and being kind to other people are way more mature traits than calling someone a punk and that kind of guy. You are a disgusting, bigoted homophobe who is not secure in what masculinity is. You're the butthole. You could have just left it at "we would love you to be there with your partner but ask that you please respect the dress code for our special event," but instead you insulted your friend, told him he's a laughingstock, and implied that everyone laughs at you. You're a joke. You were a real butthole to someone you say you love and who is such a good friend. I'm surprised he told you that it's okay, because I bet it's not okay. And you should expect Taylor to distance from you and likely cut you out of their lives, because now you've shown him what you really think. Am I the butthole for trying to help my daughter make healthier choices? I am a mom of 2 beautiful children. My youngest, Paige, just entered her freshman year. She is normally a very happy girl, but lately Paige has dreaded going to school and has even begged me not to go. No matter how many times I asked, she would not tell me why she hated school. I asked Eliza, who is a sophomore, to find out why Paige does not want to go to school. She did, and it turns out that Paige has been getting bullied at school and her peers have called her fat. Now, Paige is not a fat girl. She is very athletic and plays tons of sports. But she is a bit on the chubbier side. Since Paige wouldn't come to me about the issue, I figured I should not say anything to her about it. But I did decide that I could still be helpful by making healthier meals at home. I stopped picking up unhealthy, processed foods at the grocery store and instead stocked up on vegetables and whole foods. Now here's where I may be the Paige asked me to pick up Oreos on my next trip to the store and I finally broke and told her that instead of turning to food, she could talk to me. Paige stormed upstairs and slammed her door. Even Eliza was upset with me. It may have come out the wrong way, but I really didn't mean anything wrong by that. I just meant I am her mom and she can always come to me. Am I the butthole? You're the butthole. You basically went, if you wouldn't get bullied if you weren't fat. Which means A. You agree with her bullies. B. You think she's fat. C. You think fat people deserve to be bullied. D. Thus your daughter deserves to be bullied. E. This is her fault. F. If she doesn't lose weight she should expect further bullying. G. Her own parents would rather force her on a goddamn diet than go to the principal/the bully's parents. H. You need to punish her for not talking to you by taking away her snacks. I seriously can go through the whole damn alphabet, but you see my freaking point, OP? Edit. OP's justification for doing this is not to break the secret of the other kid. JFC, are you unable to put 2 and 2 together, OP? You already said your daughter keeps refusing to go to school, even I figured out from that single sentence she was getting bullied. You didn't need to break trust with anyone, just have some common sense. But no. You decided this needed a delicate hand as if dieting was a better approach to this than talking to the school. Lastly, dieting takes months or even years to see results, so are you just gonna keep this stupid secret for God knows how long? Get off your ass, go to the school, talk to a professional, and help your daughter. Edit 2, since most of y'all don't understand what fat phobia really means. It is not saying obesity is okay or that we shouldn't tackle the obesity rates. It's stuff like parents starving their kids to prevent them from getting fat. Doctors who will treat skinny patients differently than a fat person, refusing to give any other diagnosis to their problems other than lose weight and it'll go away. Pregnant women who are shamed for gaining weight or not losing quick enough after birth. This is what fat phobia is. Even though the daughter is an active athlete and a growing teenager, cause she's is a bit on the chubbier side, OP put her on a diet before even consulting a dietitian. Crap like that kills. So let me get this straight. You find out your daughter is being bullied at school due to her size and instead of talking to her about it, you just changed available foods and are withholding snacks? You're the butthole for how you approached it, with the Oreos, and for not sitting down with your kid and talking the minute you found out what was going on. Am I the butthole for the way I made my will? TLDR, brother-in-laws are calling me a controlling butthole for the way I made my will. I am in my late 50s and recently found out I have cancer. I have brain mets and things aren't looking too good. I am taking care of my affair and estate planning when this happened. I am single. I have no kids and no long-term relationships. My parents died when I was young and the only surviving family I have are my aunt/uncle, 2 sisters and their kids. I am pretty well off. I started in construction and have a very successful construction business. I am leaving pretty much everything split between my family. I split a part of the estate to my aunt and uncle who are both in their late 70s. They don't have any kids and I would like to leave something for them to live comfortably. The remaining money I have split equally between my sisters and their kids, 4 in total. My sisters are in their late 40s. Given our age difference and the early death of our parents, our relationship was a mix of sister/brother and sister/father. I was doing a lot of things our parents would do when they were growing up. I am very close to them. The problem my bills had was the way I structured the money. I have the money invested in a long-standing trust fund. All 6 of them will receive a $1 for every $1 they earn. This would essentially double their income. Any remaining money will be available to them after they reach 65 years of age. They also have the option to not use any money and let the investments continue till they retire. Alternatively, if they don't work, they will get no money till they are 65 years old. My nieces and nephews have either started working or are in their final year of college. My reasoning is that I want them to be self-sufficient. I don't want them to rely on this money or get lost in the sudden influx of wealth. I had a recent sit-down with the family to explain things. I didn't want to leave any bitter feeling or cause fights over money after my death. Everyone seemed pretty accepting until I got a bunch of angry calls and message from my brother-in-laws. Both of them were calling me a control freak trying to tell their kids and wives how to live their lives. I am a bit shocked. I didn't really have such an intention. Am I being a controlling butthole? Edit 1. To clarify, I am leaving absolutely nothing for both brother-in-laws. Only for 8 people, 2 sisters, 4 nephews/nieces, 1 aunt, 1 uncle. Edit 2. Thank you for all the wishes and suggestions. I would like to clarify a few points. I paid for a large chunk of my niece/nephew's education expenses. I have also offered to pay for any additional schooling, but they are not interested in that. 2 of them have already finished college and are working, the other 2 are in their final year. My sisters are well off financially and make close to $100K a year, they don't need the extra money. I have provisions to pay for health care expenses and insurance deductibles if needed. In the event anyone dies before the age of 65, their portion gets donated to 2 charities. One for firefighters with disability and another for veterans. My 2 cousins, uncle/aunt's kids, both died in the line of duty of those professions. I was pretty close to them. My sisters and nephews/nieces do not have any issues with this. They are just grateful and more focused on supporting me. Your brother-in-laws are looking to cash in on your inheritance to their wives. Looks like you've nipped their greed in the bud. Leave your will as is, otherwise they'll squander your money, leaving your siblings and nibblings with nothing to fall back on. So yeah, not the butthole. It's pretty much impossible to be the butthole when you're building a will because you're dying, but this idea is pretty cool honestly. I am guessing they were looking forward to the windfall and now are annoyed that it's not happening. Make sure you have a solid estate lawyer if you care about this level of dead hand control since they're likely to try to sue the estate. Not the butthole. Definitely not the butthole. They're selfish and ungrateful. You don't have to leave them anything, and they need to get that through their skulls. I'd say your only mistake was letting them know anything at all. Not the butthole. What you choose to do with your money after you pass is up to you. Your bills sound greedy. But, to play devil's advocate for a moment, I would also like to point out that this means the more they're financially struggling, the less they'll get. Take 2020 for an example, a lot of people lost their jobs due to something they had no control over. Not working isn't always an indication of laziness. And if your intention is to help out your sisters and nieces/nephews, you might want to add some contingency clauses or exception clauses. Am I the butthole for scamming my cousins out of their inheritance? Those are my cousin's words, not mine. I don't think I'm wrong. Years ago our grandfather passed. In his will, he left our family's traditional homestead to me and my cousins. This homestead has over 100 acres and is about 90 minutes from a very large city. We all had equal shares of the homestead, so my cousins wanted to sell it and take the cash. I didn't. The homestead has sentimental values to me and, to be honest, is quite beautiful. There's a large pond on it that is fed by a spring and several forest patches randomly throughout the land. I spent some of my best years and some of my most precious memories were made on this land. The best part was that the land was given an agricultural tax designation, so the yearly property tax was very low. I also wanted to keep it because I thought it would increase in value due to its location. Back then several out-of-state companies were talking about moving to our state. In addition, the cities in the area was trying to turn the surrounding areas into Silicon Valley too, so they were courting tech businesses with tax breaks. I thought the land was going to be in a prime location if any of that comes to pass. I want to make it clear that none of the businesses moved to our city at point, and they didn't even said they were moving to our state. In fact, our state was one of many on their lists. I didn't have any inside information and everything I knew was based on the public news available to everyone. I didn't bring it up to the cousins during our talks. To make a long story short, I bought out their shares at market value. Everything was done legally and everyone was happy at the time. I held on to the homestead through good times and bad times. I held on to it through many offers from many developers. After about a decade, companies started to move to our state and many to the areas where I predicted they would. My land's value has soared and developers call me daily, with some even visiting in person weekly. While I plan to keep the bulk of the land and am living in the house my great-grandfather built, I recently sold 2 acres for 100x the price I paid my cousins for the entire land. When they found out, crap hit the fan. The family exploded and they are screaming I cheated them out of their inheritance. I pointed out it took a decade for anything to happen, so it was the very definition of a gamble and I just happened to come out on top. They argue that I should have told them that this could have happened, and I argued I made my decision on publicly available information. Many in the family want me to update their shares, but I refuse. I view it as a business gamble I won. Am I the butthole? Edit, I'm going to answer some questions asked. 1. At the time I was the youngest of the cousins. I was a senior in college while the others were between their mid-20s to late 30s. 2. At the time I was pursuing my finance degree. Some of the cousins didn't attend college while others had degrees. 4. Our grandfather had kids and he left them money, other properties, and stakes in his business. He left the grandkids the homestead because we all spent our summers there riding horses, fishing, camping, etc. 3. Had I refused to sell, they wouldn't have been able to sell. However, it never got to that point. When they told me they wanted to sell, I asked for a week to think about it. When the week was up, I came back and told them I would buy their shares. We got the property appraised and we all agreed on the appraised price. 4. I sold everything I had, including my car. I borrowed the rest from my parents. They loaned me the money without interest, so as long as I keep the house. That wasn't a problem since I love that place. Not the butthole, they have seller's remorse. Property does tend to increase in value and they chose to take the money now rather than see their inheritance as a long-term investment. You're fine, but could cut them a tip as goodwill to get over it and move on. Not the butthole. I'm sorry, but how was this a scam in any way? They wanted cash and you wanted the land at the time and you gave them what they wanted. The only reason they're blowing up at you is because they know you and you're not a random person they sold the land to. However, stop telling family anything about your finances. Oh wow, who would have thought land increases its value as time passes? What a wild concept. Not the butthole. I'm pretty sure they haven't invested a single penny since they sold you the property, but you did. It is yours, and you can do whatever the hell you want with it because they sold it when it was theirs. You don't owe them for their bad decisions, and the fact that they think you do says a lot about the kind of people they are. Not the butthole. There was always a possibility of land becoming more valuable. How that did not occur to them, I have no idea. Am I the butthole for breastfeeding my son around my fill despite it making him uncomfortable? I didn't think I was the butthole, but now I'm not so sure. My husband's family doesn't celebrate Christmas, so mid-December we spend a week with them before flying to see my parents, whom are Christmas mad, to spend the holidays with them. I didn't really want to go this year as my husband and I had our son in August and they're very pushy with their ideals. They're the type of people who tell us their babies were talking at crawling at 3 months old, and because ours isn't, we're obviously doing something wrong. My Phil has made a few comments in the past about me feeding our baby. He has had formula occasionally due to supply issues and he's very just pick one about it. Before we went over, he called my husband to tell me he didn't want me nursing in any family spaces because it made him uncomfortable. I have to nurse in the bathroom or guest bedroom. I agreed just because I didn't want the judgment, but when I got there they asked me repeatedly why I bothered to breastfeed when he obviously likes formula. I was upset, but once again let it go and my husband had a word with them. So, I was already uncomfortable, and my baby was hungry. Constantly going upstairs was getting frustrating. My Mill and husband were smoking outside and my Phil was cleaning up the kitchen. I decided to feed my son where I sat as none of them were present. My Phil happened to walk back in the room and kind of groaned and asked me what I was doing before leaving to complain. My Mill came back in and yelled at me for breaking the house rules and doing something that I knew would make other people uncomfortable. Called me selfish, asked how I'd feel if they walked around naked, etc. I was pretty upset and my husband did his best to mitigate the situation. I called my mom sobbing and she offered to pay for my and my son's flight to them, but refused to pay for my husband as it was his parents at fault, and, from her perspective, he didn't do enough to support me. I ended up taking the offer because I felt horrible. Obviously this has made the situation worse, but my husband isn't overly angry. He has told me I shouldn't have broken their rules, which feels childish. I thought I was in the right, and they were being buttholes, but then my dad said they had a point and a right to be angry as it was their house and they laid down the rules. My mom told him to quit playing devil's advocate, but now I'm really not sure. So, am I the butthole? Not the butthole. Feeding your baby is more important than catering to his delicate sensibilities. Not the butthole. So not the butthole. If I'd have been there, I'd have jumped in to defend you. You were totally in the right, and I'm disgusted that your baby's own grandparents made you feel this way. I'd not let them see the baby for the duration of your breastfeeding. Maybe that'll teach them to not be such assholes and to not judge you, and not to impose their stupid rules on you. Your baby needing food comes before their misplaced discomfort. Your mother sounds wonderful. I love everything she said. And your husband is a tool. Am I the butthole for inviting my twin sister wedding dress shopping and not her mother? I, 33F, was adopted shortly after birth. I have an identical twin sister, Lena. She was not put up for adoption, because I was the 13th baby, and she was only the 12th. She was raised not knowing I existed, as were all of her siblings. I knew, because originally my parents were supposed to adopt both of us. The bio parents took her back after a month. We found each other at 14 at the King of Prussia Mall. It was rather more shocking for her than for me, because I knew she existed. My mom hid tears during the meeting because this was the baby that was taken away from her. Over the years, things have been rocky, but we're fairly close. We don't talk about her parents and I see them very rarely, but know most of my bio siblings and nieces and nephews. My fiancé Damien, 34 male, proposed in June. I invited Lena and one of my nieces, Callie, 16, to be my mo and a bridesmaid respectively. We went dress shopping yesterday. Both took pictures and put them on their social media, as did I. Now all day, Lena's mom has been freaking out on Facebook about how her ungrateful daughter didn't even invite her to go dress shopping. She's also been blowing up my emails and my phone about how cruel I am to exclude her. She gave me up for being bad luck. We have zero relationship. I didn't even think she'd want to be invited either to the shopping or the wedding, especially when my mom was there. So am I the butthole for not inviting her? Not the butthole. Just tell her it would be bad luck to invite her to your wedding, or anything related to it. Not the butthole. Your mother is clearly the butthole here. You have no previous established relationship with her and she suddenly expects to be worshipped as soon as you are planning to get married? The 13th child thing is bullcrap and I hope you cut off all ties with your so-called biological mother. Not the butthole, block her. Also tell security at your wedding to watch out for her, she could cause drama. The audacity of that woman to call you her daughter. I'm so sorry you've had to go through this, OP, clearly not the butthole. Am I the butthole for expecting my husband to look after the kids while I go out with my friend? I, 29 female, have 2 kids, 6 female, and 3 female. My husband works weekdays from 8 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. and after work he normally goes out with the boys and normally gets home around 5 or 6. Here's how my typical day looks. I wake up at 6 a.m., make coffee and read a book, then I do laundry, make breakfast and work and school lunches, wake my eldest at 7 a.m., get her ready for school, wake my husband, wake my youngest, drive my daughter to school, then do the shopping, cleaning, making lunch act, then I pick up my eldest from school, and make dinner. I do everything every day and when my husband gets home he eats, watches TV and falls asleep. I haven't had a full day to myself since my youngest was born. I really need a break from all this madness. Well, the other day my friend called me and asked if I wanted to go have lunch with her, then go shopping and maybe go for a drink or two. I was extremely excited and couldn't wait to just chill for the first time in ages. I told my husband and he didn't seem to care that much, so I assumed it would be okay and he would watch the kids. Well, the day came and as I was leaving my husband stopped me and asked when the babysitter would be here. I told him there was no sitter and he would have to watch them. He went insane on me and told me I can't just expect him to babysit while I go out and have a good time. He told me that unless I find someone to watch the girls I couldn't go. We got into a huge fight and I ended up just calling my sister to watch them. He's been giving me the silent treatment ever since and refusing to talk to me, so am I the butthole? Not the butthole. He gets 2 to 3 hours daily with the boys and then can't give you one weekend afternoon? Sorry, you don't have a husband, you have a boss and he has a nanny/maid. That's no marriage. Not the butthole. I only have one reply here that isn't me calling your husband awful names, selfish and a walking red flag. It's not babysitting when you're looking after your children. Am I the butthole for refusing to take care of my husband's pets while he's out of the country? I, female, 29 have refused to take care of my husband's, male, 304 cats when he leaves the country. He had gotten those cats like 1 month before we started our relationship, so they were there before me. I don't want kids anytime soon, he's on the same page, and while pets aren't as much as a responsibility as kids, they are still very much a big responsibility and I don't want that either. I like my freedom. I like the idea that I can come and go whenever I want without having to get a pet sitter or having to rush home to feed a pet, scoop litter, clean messes, etc. Not to mention the anxiety that comes with knowing a small animal is in my house and depending on me for everything. That's a lot of pressure. No, thank you. Whenever they approach me I pet them, buy them treats, and generally we all get along. When I told my husband that he's going to need to make arrangements for their care before he leaves, he was surprised and said, "I thought you loved them." I told him that I also love my nieces and nephews, but you don't see me volunteering be an extra parent. He plans to leave the country because he got a lucrative job opportunity for 3 years contract. If he was leaving for a weekend or something, fine, I'd watch them, but 3 years is asking too much. Also, we had discussed me visiting him a few times per year during the 3 years period, so that whole plan of me taking over pet care had some holes in it to begin with. He's currently not talking to me, but I refuse to budge. I will not be taking care of those cats. Am I the butthole? Edit. Before getting married I told him that those cats are his responsibility. I will assist if he's unwell, happened to be really busy at the time going on a short trip etc., but they are ultimately his responsibility and not mine. He agreed and we got married. I have no idea why he's acting so surprised now. Second edit. Due to his field of work and the demand for it overseas, he was well aware he may be leaving the country for work before he adopted those cats, and he went ahead and adopted them anyway. The plan was for me to visit once every 3 months for the duration of the 3 years contract. Tough but worth it, as the work experience and income earned would put his career and our financial goals years ahead. I'm happy for all these people who say cats are easy. Congrats on your easy cats. These 4 cats here are extremely rambunctious, destroying the entire house daily and running away every chance they get. It's not as simple as putting food and water and cleaning a litter box. We do our best, but it's like they turn to liquid and slither out any open crack they can find, and it often takes hours and a lot of driving around the neighborhood to find them back. For today alone they've knocked down the Christmas tree 3 times, puked on the carpet, kicked litter out of the box several times, broke a glass filled with wine that ended up cutting me, and pulled every piece of clothing out of his underwear drawer. Taking care of them and keeping them out of trouble is a huge task and not easy peasy. I'm sitting here thinking they are cats. What's the big deal to watch them for a bit? Then you said 3 years. WTF. Not the butthole. When you marry a person, you also take on their dependents. This includes pets and children. I was leaning yes, but then I saw 3 years. This is a little extreme. Is your relationship even going to last? This separation? 3 years is forever. He needs to take the cats. Not the butthole. I was going to say you're the a-hole until I read the last bit. In my opinion, you're not the butthole. OP. 3 years is a massive, massive time period. For a few days? Absolutely. Maybe even a few weeks. But 3 years? You guys should have come to a mutual agreement about that long before he left. A lot can change in 3 years. What happens if one of them passes in your care? What happens if you want to take a trip for yourself? A weekend getaway? Does the responsibility to find pet care then fall on you? Am I the butthole for suggesting that my boyfriend lets his kids spend Christmas with their mom? My boyfriend and I have been dating for 11 months. This is his first Christmas with my family, in fact, the second time meeting them, but first Christmas with them. He has 2 kids, 11 and 7. I suggested that since this is his first Christmas with my family, he might be feeling a little stressed, and having the kids there too might not be the best idea. I suggested that he let them spend Christmas with their mom while he attend my family's Christmas alone. He got offended and took it as in I was hiding/excluding his kids from my family, but I explained not wanting to expose the kids to any awkward moment there between him and my family, since it's the first holiday they spent together and they don't know him that much. He got upset and said he felt sad for the kids because of my suggestion, and told me it's his turn to have them this year and he will not spend it away from them. We began to argue and he didn't take my suggestion well. I told him it was just a suggestion, but he told me to stop trying to justify my actions. He texted later lecturing me about how hurt he was by my suggestion. Am I the butthole? I was just trying to make sure he will be comfortable around my family. Kids will always, and should always come first. If you think it may be a little awkward, maybe you should consider waiting doing Christmas with your family and his kids when you've all known each other for longer than, male, 11. The way I see it, you have 2 options. A. Have Christmas with your BF and his kids and catch up with your parents afterward. B. Let him enjoy his Christmas and catch up with them afterward if you want to be with your fam. He is a package deal, take it or leave it. You're the butthole. I assume he only gets them every other Christmas. There are so few magical Christmases when your kids are young enough to enjoy it. You shouldn't take those away. I suggest instead, you let him spend Christmas with his kids and spend it with your family. Next year, he won't have his kids, and if he doesn't leave you because you aren't treating his kids like family, you guys can spend the holiday with your family. Am I the butthole for snapping at my friend who keeps ditching me because I now have a child? Just over 2 years ago, I, 29 female, unexpectedly got pregnant and now have a beautiful 18-month-old daughter, Sierra. Over that time my friend's circle got considerably smaller, but my best friend remained, Mia, 31 female. Mia doesn't have kids nor wants kids, but she's been brilliant with Sierra. I'm a Som and obviously don't have as much time to hang out as I did previously. Mia and I live on the same street, we're in Manchester, England, and it's a walking distance between our houses. I've told Mia numerous times that she can just pop in whenever she wants to. She works from home, but she rarely does. She did at the beginning, but it's been happening less and less. Instead, she keeps suggesting we go out for coffee or pizza or even a drink, but I don't have the time and always just tell her to come over and we'll have coffee at my place. She asked if I wanted to go out with her and her other friends for a drink last weekend, but I said that no, but she's welcome to come over and we'll have a few drinks at mine. She said she already had plans and it felt weird to drink when she knows there's a child around. Honestly, I feel neglected. I feel like she put me on a back burner and doesn't want to be friends anymore. I'm always available, but she rarely comes over and I don't think that's fair. Today, I saw her photos from Saturday night out and I was fuming. She ditched me just so she could go and drink like she's 20 again. I felt rejected and horrible. I thought we were best friends, but she clearly doesn't value me when she won't even have a few drinks with me at my house. When she finished work, she called and asked if I fancied going for coffee to town, but I asked her to come over again. She said yes, but before she disconnected, I heard her mumble like always. This really annoyed me. When she came over, I decided to be open about everything. And while not my proudest or most mature moment, I shouted at her that she's an awful friend that she barely comes over, and if she doesn't want to spend time with me to just say it and stop playing around. She said she's always been accommodating, but it's been 2 years and she doesn't want to spend time with me when there's always a kid, especially now when she has to watch her language. Mia likes to swear. I said that she knew I had a child and responsibilities. And she said that Tom, my partner, could take care of Sierra once in a while so I could have a time off. This felt really intrusive and I told her to mind her own business and not meddle on my marriage. I was really angry with her and kicked her out. She called me a selfish butthole on her way out. Normally, I would expect her to call by now with apologies, but she hasn't done so and I'm starting to wonder, was I the butthole or was she? Perhaps I was too harsh and should have been more careful with discussing it. You're the butthole. She didn't ditch you. She asked you to go out with her friends as she'd made plans. She's not drinking like she's 20, she's drinking like someone who doesn't have a child. P.S. She's right. Your partner can look after your daughter once in a while. And should do, to try and bond with her. You're the butthole. You're always expecting her to accommodate you because you have a child. She's been coming over to your house for over a year because she understands your life has changed. You're putting in very little effort and assuming that it's on her to maintain the friendship and compromise. Why? Because you're a mom? She didn't ditch you, you've been a crafty friend for a while and she's probably done with you. Info: why can't Tom take care of Sierra once in a while so you can have time off? You're the butthole. She didn't ditch you on Saturday. She invited you to come with her and her other friends, meaning she had already committed to going out with other people. If she had come to yours for drinks, she would have been ditching her other friends. Am I the butthole for walking out of a babysitting gig after I found out that the kid was diabetic? I, 18 female, babysit for several families in my neighborhood. One of the families that I babysit for recommended me to this woman who is new to the neighborhood. She contacted me on Wednesday asking if I could babysit her 2 kids on Friday evening through Saturday afternoon. Apparently it was her friend's birthday and they were spending a night in the mountains to celebrate. She asked me to show up a little bit early so that she could go over things with me. Nothing abnormal, especially since I've never met them before. I show up and she starts going over the usual stuff, and then she starts talking about insulin and blood sugars. Apparently, one of the kids, 5-yo, has type 1 diabetes, and she didn't think that it would be important to let me know beforehand. I have zero experience caring for diabetic children. I told her that I wasn't comfortable, and she just said, "Oh, don't worry, it's easy," and then tried to show me how to give an insulin injection. I also told her that I am squeamish around needles, and she kind of laughed it off and continued trying to teach me. I finally had to cut her off and basically told her that unfortunately I wasn't comfortable caring for her diabetic child on such short notice, especially since she will be hours away, and probably drunk, let's be honest. She started freaking out and begging me to stay, as she didn't want to miss her trip. It seemed like she was about to cry as I was leaving, which made me feel bad. I texted her when I got home and basically said that in the future I would be willing to try, but I'd like to have some kind of trial run and we could build up to overnight once I actually knew what I was doing. She read my text but didn't respond. Not the butthole. Since you are neither qualified nor comfortable with performing such a task, you made the right choice. Not the butthole. Insulin injects, blood sugars and all diabetic care can be super confusing and overwhelming when you have no experience. The mom should not have ever put you in that position.